Hi everyone. In this video, I would like to talk about the price we pay for our defences. So I've done 4 videos so far in this defences series. There are a couple I'll probably add in later, but not yet. This is the final one for now. So we have lots of different kinds of defences, but what does this cost us in terms of how we can live our lives? So let's have a look at an article on my website, which is called The Price We Pay for Our Defences. Let's go and have a look. The price we pay for our defences. Defences protect us. Defences are necessary and we all need to have them. The ideal defences are the mature defences of sublimation, compensation and assertive communication. So I have a video on this which is called Common Defence Mechanisms, which is the first one of this defences series. And there's an article on my website as well called Defence Mechanisms. My website is childrenofnarcissists.org.uk if you'd like to go over there and have a look at that. So that article and that video talk about the common defence mechanisms that we all use, the more immature ones, and then the more mature defences that are harder to attain, let's say, the ideal. When we have come from a dysfunctional background, we're going to have more complex defences, and we developed these as they were necessary at the time for our survival. In a household with a narcissistic parent, children are not nurtured, helped to discover themselves, build their skills, or become independent. They are actively punished when they attempt to assert their wants and needs and grow into their inherent characters. They will adapt themselves in many ways and utilise many defences. We are born as our inherent self, and this becomes modified over time by the environment we grow up in. This means we become an adapted version of ourselves, and we disconnect from certain parts of ourselves which we feel are dangerous, as they get us rejected, punished or shunned. So being assertive, being independent, standing up for ourselves, being in our fight defense mechanism, all these things are going to cause conflict in a house with a narcissistic parent who needs to control and dominate. So we're going to disconnect from those parts of ourselves. The authentic self and the adapted self. We can differentiate between these versions of ourselves by calling them the authentic self and the adapted self. We all live in an adapted self to a certain extent, and this can be put on a spectrum in terms of how much we can be ourselves. There are various pressures from families, friends, society and religion which ask or demand certain things of us. And in order to feel accepted and loved, we will often feel that we need to be what others want us to be. This means we will reject and repress some parts of our characters which we don't feel are acceptable. And by necessity, some children develop more of an adapted self than others. So the more hostile the environment that you grow up in, the more of an adapted self you're going to have, because you'll have needed to develop more coping mechanisms, more defense mechanisms. A fortress and a prison. Our defenses can be likened to a fortress which we build around our psyche to protect it. And whilst we may feel safer within that fortress, it can also be likened to a prison. The walls protect us, and while they keep other people out and away, we can end up feeling lonely and isolated. The fortress walls are made of our behavioural patterns. These become ingrained and automatic, which is necessary as defences need to be accessed in a split second so that they are effective. This means that we can end up trapped in those patterns, and we repeat the same patterns over and over again. These patterns may involve substance misuse, such as a daily drink which takes the edge off, or a dysfunctional relationship which we are frightened to leave, or destructive ways of thinking about ourselves, like I'm an idiot or I never get anything right. Our defences are developed out of the inherent character we are born with and are rooted in our values. So for some people, they go through abuse and they come out as abusive because they have different values to someone that goes through abuse and then comes out determined to never abuse anyone, to be the opposite of their parent and to live their life in a different way. So this is influential on the way we come out of a narcissistic family. The benefits of defences. Our defences help us to feel safer in the world, especially when it feels like a dangerous place where no one can be trusted. Defences feel familiar and they've been with us since our early years, and they were the strategies that worked best for us then, and that is why we stick with them. So they feel very familiar and safe, even though they might be detrimental to us in the long run. The desire to stay in our defences goes deeper than needing to feel safe. For many, there is an underlying fear of not being able to function, of falling apart, of going mad, of being overwhelmed, of feeling the way we did in our early years, which we may not remember consciously. Fear of this keeps us avoidant of wanting to face the pain which is buried deep down in our psyche. It can feel to us that these are the benefits of our defences, but there is a price to pay when we stay living in our fortresses. The drawbacks of defences, the price that we pay. Our defences can be damaging to our physical health, our finances and relationships, especially if we have unhealthy addictions to shopping or drugs and alcohol. All of these defences can be damaging to our relationships and our physical health and our finances in some ways, but the most obvious ones are going to be addictions. If we spend a lot of money on alcohol, for example, and then we end up having serious side effects physically, it costs a lot of money and it's going to really damage our relationships, isn't it? So that's alcohol as an example of how substance misuse can damage us. We can be stuck in a self-sabotaging mindset. This can include procrastinating and being perfectionistic. And this can mean that we struggle to finish tasks and we'll find it difficult to reach our potential. There can be an underlying belief that to be loved, I have to fail. We see life through our trauma bias and are living life in the now as if the past trauma was still happening. And by that I mean as if we were still small and powerless and living in the home with the narcissistic parent or parents. And it still feels as if life is as dangerous as it was then. And actually, it's not as dangerous when we're in adulthood. We do have more power, but we just don't realise when we're still in the process of recovery how much power we do have. Because there can be lots of fear down there, which our defences run out of. Our bodies and minds are regularly triggered and we are often in fight, flight, freeze or submit responses. This is stressful and very hard on our bodies. And we have an expectation of danger, which means we are often in the thinking patterns of catastrophizing and worst case scenario thinking, which are not always realistic when we are not around narcissistic people. So of course, those paranoid ways of thinking and those worst case scenario ways of thinking are very useful when we're growing up in a narcissistic household because that's the reality that you're living in. But then once we've moved out of that environment, then it's not realistic to think in that way because everyone isn't dangerous, everyone isn't narcissistic. But our defenses become generalized. And if you'd like to watch a video of mine, which is called Behavioural Conditioning in a Narcissistic Family, and there's also an article on my website as well by the same name, and that speaks about those defences and that conditioning in childhood and why defences need to be really quick and why they become generalised as well. All useful information to know. We have black and white, which are devaluing and idealising ways of thinking, and other extreme thinking patterns, which mean we can't see people and situations in life in a realistic way. This can show up as thoughts like, no one will ever love me, I'm worthless, I will never be able to trust anyone, People are all out for themselves. If anyone does like me, it's only because they don't really know me. So all these things are going to be core beliefs that we carry. We develop them in early childhood, and we're going to believe that they are true. And we take them to be facts. So I also have a video on this, which is called How to Identify Our Core Beliefs and Change Them, or something like that. I'll put a link in the description. We may be chronic people pleasers who put our own needs last and other people's needs first, and get our self-worth from making other people happy. We may not think that our own happiness or contentment is possible or important, and we may feel a strong sense of guilt if we think about putting ourselves first or equal to others. Our lack of confidence in ourselves can mean that we have social anxiety, which can be detrimental to our well-being. Humans are social animals, even if they are more introverted. So we need to have relationships to feel happy. Relationships are something that really suffer when we come from a narcissistic family, because we've been betrayed, we've been let down, we've been stabbed in the back, we've been thrown under the bus, we've had our secrets told to everyone, we've been shamed, we've been humiliated. A lot has happened. So it's unsurprising that there are relationship difficulties. And not surprising that many people choose to isolate themselves a lot. But for a sense of well-being, we do need to have healthy relationships and nice people around us. We may break promises we make to ourselves and to others, and this can result in us feeling frustrated with ourselves. We may give up what matters to us. So this is important for our self-esteem as well, to know that we can trust ourselves and rely on ourselves. And if we say something, we do it. If we make ourselves a promise, then we do it. But when we're in these defenses, we can end up letting ourselves down, breaking promises to others, and not living how we could be living. We may avoid and put off dealing with painful situations, which can mean things get brushed under the carpet, don't get talked about, and don't get resolved. When we come from a dysfunctional background, we can be impulsive. This means that we have an impulse, a feeling to do something suddenly, which we act on without being self-reflective or without careful consideration. And these impulses overrule our judgment. So this is a way of living that can be really detrimental to our well-being when we're impulsive. And it can be said that because we couldn't develop a strong sense of self when we were young, around that developmental stage, around the age of around 3, that means that we struggle with regulating our impulses. We may struggle to make a decision and may be unable to in some instances, as we have strong inner conflicts or paralyzing fears of being judged and criticized. We may cling to partners in romantic relationships and want our partners to be dominant, or we may strive to dominate them. We may feel that we want to be rescued from life or looked after. We may imagine fantasy relationships with people who are unattainable. Perhaps they are famous or married. We may spend a lot of time obsessing over abandonment and possible abandonment, which can mean thinking a lot about our relationships, friendships, or jobs ending. We expect rejection by others. This is a really stressful way to live, isn't it? Kind of always feeling you're on the precipice of losing important things. We may have a sense of confusion about our role in life and who we are, where we are going, and who we want to be, and unsure of aspects of ourselves, such as our beliefs and desires. In short, we cannot achieve a strong, stable sense of self. We are not in touch fully with our inherent real self, and are therefore not fully sure of who we are, what we want, and what would make us truly content and happy in life. We cannot develop full autonomy over ourselves and our lives. We are unable to make the changes we need to make our lives better for ourselves, like leave our partner or change jobs, move towns, and so on. So let's say that we're in a relationship with someone who's also narcissistic. Our parent was narcissistic, but we haven't recognized that in our partner. So as long as we're living in our defenses, we won't be able to see reality for what it actually is. And then we're going to end up stuck in that relationship and not really understanding what's happening to us. Whereas if we move away from our defenses, we start to see reality for what it is, then we perhaps will see that our partner is narcissistic, and then we can make those changes and then start to live a happier life, a more fulfilling life, where we strive to become our ideal self and reach our potential. And becoming our ideal self is something that is healthy to strive towards. So we are ourselves, but we can always become an improved version of that, a healthier version of that, a happier version of that. And thinking about who we would ideally like to be can be really helpful in reaching our potential. The benefits of moving into mature defenses. To become masters of our fate, we need to make the unconscious conscious, as Carl Jung said. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And Carl Jung also said, a man likes to believe that he is the master of his soul, but as long as he is unable to control his moods and emotions, or to be conscious of the myriad secret ways in which unconscious factors insinuate themselves into his arrangements and decisions, he is certainly not his own master. I really like both of those quotes, and this is why it's so important to become more self-aware. Moving out of our unhealthy defenses will mean that we move into a more realistic way of thinking, and we will develop healthy levels of narcissism and self-esteem, which will enable us to become an advocate for ourselves and not permit ourselves to be treated badly, balance our needs with the needs of others rather than elevating their needs and wants above our own, cut or limit contact with others who are damaging to us and do not have a healthy respect for us. So there can be a move towards healthier relationships. Find hope, meaning and purpose in our lives. Develop a sense of confidence, resilience and general well-being. Develop the ability to become more stoic. To quote Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been. We can change our perception of events by understanding when people are projecting their own issues onto us or others, scapegoating us or others, and learn to give those feelings back to those people internally. How can we move into more mature defenses? We can move into more mature defenses by developing our self-awareness. In this way, we make the unconscious conscious, and this then gives us the ability to change our behavioural patterns. We cannot change that which is unconscious. So, self-awareness leads to understanding of ourselves. Understanding of ourselves leads to acceptance of ourselves and the way things are in life. So the more things that we change inside ourselves, the more our relationships with ourselves change, and our relationship with the outside world changes as well. So everything starts to change. We understand ourselves more, we accept ourselves more, we understand and accept others more as well. And then we can start to move more towards a place of compassion for us and other people also. And this is where feeling content lies, when we connect with that compassion that we might not be connected with, when we have a harsh inner critic, when we've grown up in a hostile environment, when we've grown up with a narcissistic family. There's a lot to process to get to that place, but it can be done, and it starts with self-awareness. So I hope the information in that video was useful, and take care of yourselves, and bye.